Have you not listened to your elders, my friend?
I've listened to the elder, but I don't listen to.
Okay, you have.
Welcome to Right Between the Eyes podcast, a KISS podcast with 3 generations of KISS fans telling you why we love it loud.
We've been around for generations, but when you see a little 5-year-old kid in KISS makeup on his dad's shoulders who's wearing KISS makeup next to his father, that stuff, that'll put a lump in your throat. You have to turn around for a second. It gets me. It's music, but it's generational, and it brings families together instead of separates them.
Here we are, the 3 of us. If you're seeing this on YouTube, we are back to the Brady Bunch screen, almost as if it never happened, but it actually did happen. So this is our look at the title, I believe at the time that we're recording this, is called Rosemont and Beyond. That just a few weeks ago, we're nearing a month now. It's almost kind of hard to believe by the time Christmas rolls around. We will have seen each other a month ago. And that was kind of cool in and of itself, that the 3 of us, this kind of journey of the show of talking about, oh, maybe one day we will, and then it arrives in Rosemont, 4 from the end. And if you want to get technical about it, technically we were second from the end because the last 2 shows were the big event in New York. So we'll talk about that. We'll kind of break it back. We'll rewind the clock back to November 27th and talk about our meeting up in Rosemont. So I had a little bit longer drive to get to you guys. So what was your day like in prep? I know I had filmed a little bit of a video of kind of like my journey getting to meet the 3 of your guys, but what was your time frame of the show like leading up to Rosemont? And we haven't talked about this on camera on the mic, of the situations with Paul leading up to those shows. So the 3 being canceled. Let's start with the cancellations of those shows and what you guys were thinking about. Let's start with Nick on this one.
Yeah, I was really concerned, especially when it was getting close, because we were literally, there was one show before us, Indy, and going into that weekend, I was thinking, I was actually a little more pessimistic in thinking that there was a less than a 50% chance that we were gonna actually see the show. What about you, Nikko? Right, we had a lot of conversations. We were pretty concerned.
I was nervous. I think the only thing that was always encouraging, or that I guess kept being encouraging, is they would kind of cancel show by show. I felt like if they were really gonna cancel everything and just do New York, they would have done it, and kind of like after that first or second cancellation, they would have said, "Oh, we're done till Madison Square Garden." Because I forgot, I saw an act earlier this year, and they canceled kind of a wave of shows, and they just announced them all together that they were going to cancel them up until a certain date. So that was encouraging. But man, hearing the kind of flu he had and seeing the photo of him with the IV and everything, he looked sick. And I mean, yes, I know he's an older gentleman, but it looked like he was very ill. And the idea of putting on all that stuff to do, 4 or 5 more shows sounded crazy, and they have been hyping up MSG a lot. So starting to feel like, wow, it might not happen. But once Indy happened, I figured, well, actually, I'm lying. Once Indy happened, I think we joked, what if Indy happened? And then they woke up the next day and it's like, oh, he tried it, can't do Rosemont. So we cancel Rosemont and Baltimore. And then go to Madison Square Garden. Right. So I would be lying to you but once the Indy happened, I was pretty sure we were fine.
Yeah, I think that's where I was too, especially, being a lot of us was happening right around Thanksgiving. So we're going into Thanksgiving. And I'm trying to not be on my phone. And I know Ellen was saying at one point, let's have Thanksgiving dinner and you not be pulling out your phone every 30 seconds, where I was like, I started getting to that point, whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And me fretting about it, is it going to do anything? Tickets will be refunded, and we weren't getting the sound check information too. So I was like, yeah, it's kind of a day-to-day type thing. But I had the same thought, Nikko, like, okay, once I got up really early on the 26th and saw, maybe it's the 25th was the indie show, because I think he had there were days off building in between. That I was like, oh, I mean, Keith LaRue had posted where you had a picture of the arena that they're there. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're happening. But I thought the same thing like you did. Like he gets off stage, wakes up the next morning and is like, whew, I don't know. I think I pushed myself too far. And that's what I was kind of thinking like, well, he tried it once. That's where the Kiss Army was born. So did that show and builds in a couple days. So once I saw the confirmation of the sound check email come through, I was like, okay, we're good. So let's go to day of the show. Were there any other reservations, or were you guys in work day mode? Like what was your day of the Rosemont show for both of you guys?
Well, I had taken the day off of work, but in the job I'm in, there's no such thing as a day off of work. So I had to do a lot of prep early. I was up super early, making sure that my customers knew what was going on, trying to get my orders in early, talking to Nikko, trying to coordinate with him what time he was going to be by the house, texting you, Rob, trying to get a real good feel of when you were coming in. And we had some contact with Brant to make sure, because we wanted to go to the hotel and see him. And I'd say about 11 o'clock or so, everything kind of flowed, Nikko, right? Nikko was home early, and it really started to get exciting for me. About 11:30, quarter to 12, when we got in the car, I kind of had my work stuff 99% in the rearview mirror. There were a couple things I had to do at the pizza place when we ate pizza, but I was starting to feel really hyped and stuff, right, son? It was starting to feel real. It just was so damn cold. It was so damn cold. It hasn't been that cold, Rob. That's 2 weeks ago. Yeah. It has not been that cold since that day. The weather really got good a couple days after that. It was
ridiculous. But right? No, it was Rob. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know I'm in Ohio compared to Chicago. I just walked down to my parents, and even the day that I was filming, you know,
I saw the video. Yes,
us packing the car, and I even joked like, "Oh, I bet it's colder in Chicago." Good Lord, was it colder in Chicago? Even if it was by 2 degrees. Because, you know, a wife kept saying, you know, you're going to deal with lakefront, you know, wind coming off of the lake, you know, close to Chicago. And I was thinking it's going to be cold, but it's not going to be that cold. Boy, were we wrong. And the temperature now, like I said, I walked down to my parents, I had a light jacket on. I thought, why? Beautiful. We have had this weather at the show.
Right. But get right, Nikko. We were good, right? Noon, we get in the car, we're starting to head out.
Well, I had a really easy. All I had to do was be hyped about Kiss because I was off Monday the whole day. I got in late from Florida Sunday. I was in Florida for Thanksgiving, so I got in late Sunday because my flight got delayed a few times because snow. And really Monday, I woke up, was like hyped for Kiss. All I had to do was get ready and drive to my dad's house. Drove there, and the hype was pretty real for me when I got home and you were there, Dad. I think on the drive there, I was still trying to conceptualize it all. But yeah, man, it's cold. That was the only thing to think about is when is like, wow. And this will be a nice kind of seed planted for a story in a few minutes. But I was like, wow, it's really cold today. I'm glad we're going in an arena. I'm glad Kiss is going to be inside. I'm glad we're going to get to hang out with everybody inside for the entire experience.
Right, the entire experience.
You'll hear me setting up certain lines that, yeah, if I was fully ready to celebrate completely inside for the entire time with everyone involved.
You know, we spent a little bit of time walking between cars. Mm-hmm. I think like once you guys had got in the hotel, it was a little like, okay, this is real. It's happening. This isn't a thing we're talking to. We, you know, went and had lunch together, and Nick, thank you for doing that. But, you know, just sitting around the table, just trying to talk to one another. And we were still kind of, you know, a little gibberish with one another. We're trying to have like 4 or 5 conversations and just trying to unpack it. So then we had gone to Brant's hotel, and that's where we started handing out buttons and stuff. Mm-hmm. And hearing Brant go, you know, we'll just walk to the arena. I remember getting out of the car going, "Oh, it's a little cold. I don't know if we want to walk to the arena." But we were like, "No, we'll just drive. It's not that far." I remember taking a shot from the video. I'll try and superpose a shot here, looking like you want to walk from here over the highway and under. I did that to my wife in Vegas, where I was like, let's just go to the Hard Rock. It's not that far. And the perspective in Vegas, nothing changes. The size of the building doesn't get any bigger.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I don't think we want to do that. So we all pile into the car. We kind of get in line, and you find a nice little spot that, wasn't too far away. And
right.
We're going to make our walk to sound check. So talk on that experience, guys. I remember having a conversation. You were like, well, what's it going to be like? And my only frame of reference was from Dayton when it was May. It was Eric's birthday that day, and our average temperature was like 75 degrees. So it wasn't that bad, but we were only outside for about 10 minutes. It wasn't that long. So, Nick.
Well, first of all, unbeknown to you gentlemen, as we got out of the car, because Nikko stayed with me, the first thing he said is, there is no way we're walking to the arena. And I said,
yeah, I was playing that seat early.
And I said, let's get in. We'll talk to everybody. I'll just make it very clear. I says, because I'm not going to get like completely inebriated there or anything like that. And I really didn't even imbibe there really, because I wanted to take in the whole thing. One of the things I just wanted to get back to, Rob, was it was unbelievably great we had met Brant and Scott first at the hotel. We picked them up. We had to take them on a little errand, and then finally getting a chance to meet you in person and your wonderful wife. It was just surreal. It was just surreal. It was.
Sorry, I glossed over that.
No. That's okay. It was really like almost like you're meeting a family member that you didn't know you have. So that was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes, we get in the car. We drive to Rosemont. They park us. We get out, and the biggest fear I had walking to the line for sound check was, are they really going to make us wait outside for a long period of time? And everybody was kind of thinking, no, it's the line's at 3:00. They're going to start moving. They're going to let us in. So we're about 20 minutes out there. And again, I am from here. I know it's cold. I don't dress for the weather because I'm in and out of cars all the time. I'm not a winter jacket person. I don't spend a lot of time outdoors in the winter. I'm in and out. That's how I do it. So I have my vest on. I had a little pullover on underneath the vest, and Nikko doesn't either. Okay. And I could see the both of us, and you guys were dressed much better than us. You were much
significantly better than us.
You had caps on.
They were strapped,
and sure, you guys were
sweatshirts. Yeah,
sure. So 20 minutes out there, I took a walk to the door, which was way out of the way, about probably a couple blocks, like city blocks we were behind, and no one could give me an answer. When I went back, I told Nikko, look, we're going to have to go back to the car because I just do not want to die of frostbite.
Right.
Or have whatever you call it, hypothermia or whatever that crap is. So we went back to the car. You guys obviously were cold, but you were bundled up better. And we had great communication going on in the car. You obviously text us when it was time to go back. And it was much more bearable upon our return, son, right? It was, even though we were still out there.
Well, we went behind the building that cut off the wind.
Once we
also did that. No, it was just to reiterate something, because I know people think we're crazy. So like, I don't know if it's like this in every cold place, but like in Chicago, you don't dress when you don't think you're going to be outside. You don't dress for it.
Right.
You just don't, because you're in and out of the car, you're in and out of the building. You deal with the, walk from the car or the train to the building, etc.
Sure.
So exactly. I was like, I'm looking for style. And it's my last Kiss show. MFers, like I'm looking to, vibe. I'm sitting there going, I would rather die. No, I wouldn't actually rather die. Real quick, just comment on something. I literally remember in the hotel, Rob, I think I like turned to you and like did like not like a double take, but I was like, dude, you're really here. Like I'm looking at you. I'm talking to you.
He's not an avatar. We'll talk about that later.
Oh no, you didn't know Rob is real. Rob is in the flesh.
Rob is not, they are real people, Nick. They're not.
They were all real, and everyone was great too. I just wanted to
as
well. But of course, this trio meeting up was I mean, it was everything, and the experience was everything. Even being in the cold was everything. The one thing I did not think of, because I've done sound checks before, Robbie, you're right. They were always in the other two I've done. I know now, I remember, we're in the summer. This is warm.
Mhm.
And this one was particularly difficult because wow, we had to wait outside a long time. Me and my dad, not as much as you two, because like he said, we effed off to the car for a second, then we came back. But what I
get
was
it.
hearing, and this isn't a review of the Allstate Arena, I'm not going to say that, but when we got up there, we realized there's definitely confusion about what this line was.
Oh,
And there were
yeah.
people
Yes.
who thought they were getting there early to get in the venue early with like GA tickets or whatever, and they were getting turned away as soon as they got up. So that line was probably way longer than it should have been.
And it
Mhm.
should have been. Yep.
And the way they were dividing it up, just like the space they have at the Allstate Arena, they needed a larger space to start letting people in. I think they could have pushed those tables farther. I don't know. But once we were in and it was fine. But the other thing, once again, this is not a review of the Allstate Arena, but it was so cool to experience something at a show I've never experienced until, you know, we were with Rob and everyone. They definitely like weren't, no one was set up yet either.
They weren't
Like I went into
prepared.
places early and like the drinks and the merch are already ready. The
Mhm.
merch and the bars and the food. I mean, there were people, it looked like people just walking into work. I'm like, well,
Right.
we're about to watch this band play and you people are just showing up. It's crazy.
See, it was a complete 180-degree experience from Dayton to this. And that's what, you know, Xander from Kiss Army thinks. He was like, so how was Soundcheck? Did it run just like it did in Dayton? I'm like, I said the exact same phrase you did. I said, people were showing up to work. Like I felt like I was back at work and I had pallets of product that I had to sort through. There were pallets and pallet jacks of like, here's this particular shirt all in,
Right.
you know, double X that are still in its boxes. Or there was one merch table completely set up, the ultimate VIP, which that seemed backwards. There should have been banners for every single album and every single member throughout the whole entire arena. So you could have got your picture taken with the Rock and Roll Over cover and been like, hey, that's cool. It's my favorite album. Those
Yep.
were all crammed inside the, you know, the $1,000 sound check for the, you know, captain's lounge or whatever. They were still taking money bag sodas and setting up banners in that room. So while we were trying to come in, you had the ultimate VIP on one side, the normal sound check on the other. So we were standing in wrong lines just as soon as we
Yeah.
got in, and we were like, oh no, you need to be over here. And, you know, thinking, okay, you got crowd free merchandise shopping. So just like Xander and I did before, I thought, well, I'll just go right up to the merchandise table that's right here. And they're like, oh no, it's going to be after sound check. And I was like, really? Because in Dayton, they kicked us out of the arena. So like, this is our time to do it. And as we were walking around in line for sound check, we're looking over and going, well, that merch booth's not set up and that merch booth's not set up. And then there's crap stuck into a kitchen over there. I was like, no wonder we were outside for, and
Yeah.
Brant clocked it. We were outside for 55 minutes entirely from the time
That's
that we
crazy.
got in line up till we got in the door. So 55 minutes out in Chicago cold. The arena is big enough. They could have said, hey, let's get people in here.
Yeah, I certainly was very disappointed. That was the only negative of the entire evening was the disrespectful, the rude treatment, I think, of making us stand outside, because the arena is certainly big enough that they could have funneled everybody in through one of the doors on the north side and they could have fit everybody in, and we could have waited in line like we did for the sound check.
Right.
To go through a couple of kiosks or desks or whatever to separate us and give us our lanyards and all that stuff. But it is what it is. Once that was over, once we were inside for a few minutes and started to move and started to recognize kind of where we were at and stuff, it was from there, it was all great.
Yeah. And we found a meeting spot as we were kind of in line, like, hey, this 109, because we were in section 111. And if we just went down another section, there was like this little pizza place, beer, I want to call it garden, right off to the side where it was like, hey, we could kind of hang out here. But getting in, I'm kind of curious. We didn't get a whole lot of chance to talk about it. You guys getting to see an unmasked Kiss play and getting to hear a set of songs that how many of the songs that they played have you heard live before, or were some of these like first time getting a chance to hear? So what was your guys' experience at once the sound check was actually happening and starting?
Well, I was certainly of the opinion. I've been going to concerts since I think it was February 81. So 42 years. I've seen just about everybody. I've been very lucky. I've never really been to a sound check, not like this. I was amazed that I said this before. There are bands that would be lucky to have the audience that Kiss had for the sound check, because almost the entire floor was covered, and then the two on each side of the main floor, those seem to be pretty filled as well. Yeah. I don't know for sure how many people were there. I know there had to be in excess of 1,000 people at the sound check, but it was a trip. I mean, I have never seen Kiss perform without their makeup. It was very cool when they came on stage. I have never seen Plaster Caster. I just got to remember. I've seen Got to Choose. I've seen Hotter Than Hell. I've seen Shock Me. What's the other one that I'm missing?
Going Blind.
Going Blind.
I've never seen Going Blind. So really, the only two of the Gene songs. But again, I was surprised at how friendly they were, how good Paul looked. Gene. We didn't get a lot of interaction with Eric. Eric was behind the drums. At one point, they asked him if he wanted to sing a song, and he said no. But it was a wonderful experience for me. It far exceeded what I envisioned it to be. Nick,
man, we were pretty close on the floor too, so got a great view of the whole band. What I thought was cool too is I've been to sound checks before, but not ones that have like a lot of the lights on and they had the Kiss screen behind them going.
Crazy. It was like a show.
An arena.
Like
there were a lot of people. I mean, there were enough people that would have filled up a smaller concert venue. It really felt concert-like, which was really cool. And I know they are playing instruments. Yes, it's concert-like, but it felt a lot more significant. I think it was worth the money. And of all the songs, I've seen Hotter Than Hell. I've been very lucky to see Hotter Than Hell before. I've seen Shock Me before, but the other three songs not. So those were really fun too. And the biggest thing, I think, for me and my dad, I kept saying this. It's funny. I was saying this. It hit me at the restaurant, and then it hit me again. I kept bringing it up. I just still wasn't conceptualizing. I've never seen Kiss perform live without makeup. So this is my first time actually seeing Paul Stanley sing and play a guitar live in person, just himself. Same thing for Gene, Tommy, Eric. That was really cool. And that took me I think a song and a half. I think into the second verse in Hotter Than Hell, I was like, whoa, okay. This is really Kiss playing Unmasked, which was really, really cool. And it was cool that for soundcheck, we all got to stand together.
Yes.
Which is cool because the other guys had seats kind of spread out. So that was cool to be able to hang out and watch the band with them, talk about the songs, share some footage. So it was a really wonderful start. And then just seeing how excited people in the crowd were. It was some early fan interaction, a little more fan interaction. Sometimes you go to a show, you see people beforehand, then you go to your seat, you leave, right? But this was like you're waiting in line with people, you're chatting with people, you go down to sound check with people, you talk to people down there, you leave sound check, you're talking about it, you're getting excited for the band. Now you're thinking about Amber Wild's coming. So it was a full experience, and just to get there was just some extra time we got to spend with you all too, which was the best part of the whole thing.
I said in the video that I was doing that I was planning on, I'd kind of committed, like I'm gonna document everything, camera rolling at all time. And when we were in the elevator, I'm holding the phone. I started having this thought of, I'm not participating. I'm not present in the conversations. I'm worrying about filming so it looks cool for everybody else. And I had that moment in the elevator. I'm going to capture moments of us. Okay, we're physically in this space. We'll talk for a couple seconds and it's camera off. And I want to be there. I like having done sound check. I was totally into it, but having the two of you gentlemen to next to me, I spent about half my time watching the show, the sound check, and looking over the two of you watching it. And I
It
was just
was-
like, I can't believe I'm here next to the two of you. And then off to the side is Brant and Scott. And then there's Brant. Like it, I was just like a kid in a candy store. And it kind of put me back in that first Kiss experience with my best friend and I saw Kiss in 92, where we're looking at each other going, I can't believe we're here. And I told him, he asked me how the show was. I said, two guys that I have been podcasting with almost 3 years were standing in front of me, and I was kind of transported back to 1992.
That's
like, I
cool.
can't believe the thing that we've been talking about for 3 years is actually happening. And you two are right next to me. If Kiss said, "Oh, I'm not feeling good," that this is it, because that had happened at a sound check previously, where they canceled the show at sound check. I would have been fine with it. That would have been the price that have been worth
Amen.
worth the
I
trip.
agree with you. I agree.
So, yeah.
And I'll raise you in just real fast. There's the kind of the same sentiment for me and my dad. We've been to like 8 or 9 Kiss shows together at this point. So we would sing songs to each other, but like turning and seeing the three of you as well, Rob, especially you, doing this whole show. I have like an ingrained photographic, just a couple seconds in time I took. We all turned. I could see you all during the first chorus of Hotter Than Hell, and we were all doing the hotter than hell together, and like that was something that I was like, wow, it's
that was great.
Everyone, because I was on the farthest left, so I got to see all 4 of you, and I'm like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, so after sound check, the other funny thing was, I remember thinking, well, if it's like in Dayton, they're going to kick us out of here. We got to go back outside again, wait in this cold, or go to the car. We just got to hang out in the arena. So I'm glad somebody came to their senses and stuff. So I was able to pick up some merch, which I don't know if I'll say this on camera, but I think I got my Dubai money back. Maybe I'll save that off call. I don't know if I told the two of you that, but I'll probably cut this section out. But I was able to pick the merch up at the show that I wanted in right before sound check. That was the other thing. They had said, "Oh, we're not going to do any merch till after sound check." And then once I got back in line, we heard an announcement in the arena, "Hey, they're ready to do sound check again." So Scott and I ran to go do some of that stuff. So we got to meet a couple people in line. I got to hand out a button to one of our U.S. soldiers who had flown in from Iraq, because he had a baby being born. So was able to give him a button, and he's like, I'm listening to a lot of podcasts. So he's writing our podcast name down. So thank you, sir, if you're watching. Sorry, I can't quite remember your name, but thank you for your service. But then once the sound check was over, we're milling around. Xander and Jeb show up, Emily show up. So that, for me, that was the second moment of going, okay, the Rosemont crew is here. The gang is here. So I pulled my video out a couple times, but getting to see the whole group of us after doing the 6-month journey was really kind of cool to go, okay, it's happening. It's real. We're about ready to go to the arena. Any thoughts on seeing Jeb and Xander and Emily at all, just from that?
It just got better. It's like everything just kind of, once we got out of sound check and we were standing there, and Emily and her mother and her friend Sandy show up, and Zeb and Xander, it completed everything. And I felt like, even though we had never met each other before, all of us, I felt like I was in the company of really good friends, people that I feel like I know for longer than I should have. And it was really the best part of the night. I mean, I know we're going to gloss over the show a little bit, but that's what it was all about to me. And then afterwards, it couldn't have went any better. And it was an absolutely perfect evening. Sans the cold a little bit we went through, but Nick and I talked about it. Like, I just don't think it could have went any better. It really couldn't have.
It was just surreal again, seeing these people's faces in person, and like taking a couple seconds, and even letting some truly healthy awkwardness kick in. It wasn't bad awkwardness. It was like processing time of like, I was just on screen with Xander a week ago, and now he's like hugging me. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're real. Like, it's crazy. Like how the beauty of technology is we can form these relationships across the world like this. But then when you see him in person, it's just so incredible. And it adds to something that we've always said. And Todd Kearns talked about it, and other guests that we've had on and talked to. When you're a Kiss fan, it just hits different.
Yeah.
When you know you're with a Kiss fan, and we were with particularly really, not that anyone's fandom is larger than anyone's, but we're with some pretty huge Kiss fans because they all have podcasts. We all have shows where we talk about this band.
Correct.
Like,
Right.
this is more than a hobby for us. It's truly a thing that we do. It's I'll say, even though it's a fun thing, it's a really fun body of work that we get to do. We analyze these things, we go deeper, we talk about this band on a deeper level than some people. So also being with all these people and being like, oh, like, I know what songs you like already, or I know certain things you like, which was super cool.
Right.
And then what made it even cooler, just when I thought it possibly couldn't get any cooler than this. And once again, I forgot your name, sir. I'm so sorry. But we get to our seats and we're talking and we're getting ready, and us three are sitting, and I like turn to my left, just kind of scoping out the crowd, and I see a gentleman kind of wave and gesture, and he sticks out his hand and goes, "I didn't think I would ever see you guys here. I love your podcast." And I'm like, oh my God, to make it better, as a listener, the row in front of us, there was a listener, and sir, you were so kind. And I wish we could have gotten to talk to you a little longer, but feel free to hit us up on the DMs or comment or reach out via email. Please remind us of your name so we could definitely shout you out deeper on the next show. And then it was cool too. I heard after you were done talking to us, I heard you kind of sharing who we were to the people in your section, because obviously people around us are like, do these people know each other? This guy's saying hi to these three guys. So that was one of my favorite moments of the night too.
I have his name. Mr. Chuck McGuire. Thank you,
Chuck
sir.
McGuire, sir.
I knew I wanted to say
an honor to meet you.
But the look on his face, because I had, in doing the video prep, my only regret was I didn't want to take away the moment from us, but I almost wanted to put out there, hey, we're at section 109. Once everybody started showing up, not that I didn't want it to listeners or whatever that happened to be there, but I just got absorbed into all of us. But I had taken a picture of the hat I was wearing and my Carnival Souls t-shirt. Like, hey, if you see us, say hi. We'll hand out buttons. I think we've got just very few left of these, so we'll be doing something later on with these in the podcast. But so for Chuck to be sitting there and I'm wearing my hat, and we must have said something that made him whip around, and the look, like you said, the look on his face was like, oh, holy crap, there you guys are. That was just another cool amazing moment in and of itself. So, and
hopefully we lived up to your expectation.
He was like,
I don't know what to do. I was just talking with him and like thanking him too. And I'm like, man, hopefully that felt genuine, because I was just as starstruck. I mean, I was starstruck myself, the fact that that you wanted to say hi, and it just means so much that you support the show and wanted to get to know us even for a few minutes on a personal level. That's what it's all about. So thank you for a true highlight, and hopefully our paths cross again, because you're in our neck of the woods, it seems like, Mr. McGuire. So
the funny moment when Say Yeah came on, that I think I had said in previous shows, like, I really kind of like that song. So I think I had sung a chorus to like each of one of you guys, and I looked over at him and he's pointing at me singing, and I was like, yeah, there's somebody else that digs the song. So I don't want to, I know
I'm glad you had each other up.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm glad you guys
the only two in the arena. I don't want to gloss over the show too much, but I want to talk about Amber Wild for a moment, which I didn't have any expectation. I listened to the two songs, Silver, and I can't remember what the other song.
Breakout.
Yeah. Those are the only two that I'd heard beforehand. And not that I didn't like them or anything, but I was like, okay, I'm here to see Kiss. I'm glad it's not done by, the painter. I didn't care who it was. There wasn't a bucket of paint being thrown.
Mr. Garibaldi.
So I was, after like the first song, when it's always interesting when you don't know what the songs are, you go, I can't understand anything they're saying.
Yeah.
The same experience as once you know the songs, you know every lyric. So I think you just in the moment of trying to figure it out. But by like the third or fourth song, Nick, I looked over at you and went, they're actually really pretty good. Like Evan's holding his own up there. You could see where
they shred.
Yeah, shredding too. I thought, okay, he's going to play some guitar, but the boy was actually really kind of jamming pretty good. What were your guys' thoughts on Amber Wild before we get into it?
Yeah, number one, Evan Stanley is a super talented. I mean, I almost think he could. The lead guitar guy was fantastic too, but I think Evan, by all accounts, could be a lead guitarist himself. They made a lot of noise. There was a lot of melody. I kind of dug it. I still haven't had the time to really go listen to the new songs. Is it memorable for me? It was memorable for me in the fact that they were very good.
Mhm.
I'm not sure where that music goes that they're playing because it was kind of hard. But listen, they were great. I had a really good time with them. Being my last memory of the last Kiss show I saw, I'm glad that we saw Amber Wild open up for them than countless other people that have in the past.
Yeah, man, I was really impressed. One that it was Evan. It was Kiss Blood was up there on stage, and I didn't know he had a band until we found out they were opening. I even forgot about their name when I think my dad he made a joke on the last Road to Rosemont episode. I'm like, I don't know what Amber Wild is, and I'm pretty sure I'm on the show. Like, what is that? And you guys are like, oh, it's Evan Stanley. I was like, oh, listen, they got my attention and they kept it. I have listened to the two songs. I think they're both very good. I'm actually very excited for the album because they did shred, they did jam. Evan and the lead guitar player, they both kind of take turns soloing and stuff. I always dig that when you see the lead guitar or when you see the lead singer who normally plays the rhythm when they're kind of shredding too. They had an interesting look to them too. I feel like I haven't looked up anything about them, but I feel like they all had a look that was of like a different era of rock and roll. The drummer looked straight out of the 80s, like in Alex Van Halen, with the headband and the hair coming out. The bass player looked like grunge, he was shirtless, a lot of tattoos. He's like kind of a combo between Flea and the lead singer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I forget his name. He kind of had like a double thing with his stash going. And then the lead guitarist had kind of like a long red coat. Yeah, yes. Like that was his kind of vibe. And then Evan with like the shiny outfit. He was like the glam rock thing. So it was kind of cool and his guitar too. So to kind of see him all I wonder if that's true. I would be curious if they looked up like if it is each of them supposed to represent something, but they were really cool to me. And listen, I could see myself really enjoying their album because some of those songs I dug. Is Silver, is that the song the lead guitarist sang, or is that a different song?
I think that's a different song.
I think it's a different song.
I think the two singles are both Evan on vocals.
Or Evan, okay. That makes sense.
Well, I don't want to gloss over the Kiss show. We did have our moment on Kiss Army Things. So a little plug the Kiss Army Things YouTube channel.
Yes.
Where after the show, the whole group of us got together. Yeah, fresh right after. But just some moments of I had to capture some of us singing right between the eyes on video.
Oh, so, yeah.
You leaning in. Unfortunately, Nick, I didn't get a lot of video. I didn't take a lot of video of the three of us there, but you took this beautiful shot of the three of us that I absolutely adore of us sitting in the arena. I found ourselves in the actual Kiss Online version. And thank God Nikko was wearing his yellow hat because I was
it stood out.
It stood out, so I could see that. So I'm gonna do something with that later on. Surprise. But yeah, I just had a really good time with the band. No matter how many times I've heard all of the songs, the same exact show that I've seen 6 times, and the only swap out song for me was Tears Are Falling for Making Love. Everything else was exactly the same. I didn't care. I had a great time. I thought Paul sounded as good as he has been on this tour. There was nothing earth shattering, but you kind of see this is the second show that he has been playing since he was sick, and hearing how sick he thought he was, you could tell like, hey, I'm not trying to take this for granted. Like he was really into it. Gene was into it. I thought Eric was on fire. Tommy was just stellar the whole night. I walked away from that going, of all of the shows on the End of the Road tour, yes, a big part of that was because we were all together, but that was just the icing on the cake. That may have been the best experience from this whole entire tour. And again, I think a big part of it is all of us, but I thought the band did really well. Just your thoughts on that. Again, I know we've talked about it on.
Yeah, I mean,
show.
I've said this now, and now that I've had a couple of weeks, I mean, I thought it was it was not a different show from any kind of a musical standpoint, but I felt like what separated this show from all the other ones that we've seen, this did feel like the end. It was I felt like it was a big love letter to the city of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
They certainly referenced the history and the love affair that they had with the city. They were very, very appreciative. The crowd was on fire. And I know we talked to Xander and people could go watch that, but even he admitted that Indy was nowhere near the level of interaction with the fans as Chicago was. I think I could see Paul generally feeding off that. I think Gene did too, as well as the rest of the band. I felt Paul was a stallion that night. I thought he was as good as I've seen him, better than the other shows I've seen him. And so what made the show different for me was just the interaction, was just the playfulness of the band. But I felt like Nick and I have seen so many of these, and we always left them saying, God, they just ended. And they never said anything like this is it or whatever. So you always had the feeling that they were going to come back, or it was kind of cold, or what's going on here? Why don't they reference that this is it? It never felt like it. This truly felt like the end, and everything within the show itself, whatever tracks they're using or whatever, I was thoroughly satisfied with that being my Kiss show, walking out of that arena. And I'm not even talking about us. I'm just talking about the band itself. I was glad to see Making Love. I don't think I've ever seen that song before live. That was fun.
That song was
everything else was kind of anticlimactic a little bit. But by and large, it was a terrific send off for this Kiss fan of over 50 years.
I share a lot of what you both said. One, being able to, like you were saying, Rob, just turn and sing the songs with you both, Rob, having you there. Like we said, we've seen now Kiss shows where it's just my dad and I, other friends and people of ours, but like true Kiss fans, right, as deep as us, to have you there to sing those songs, Right Between the Eyes, I Love It Loud was definitely a highlight. But for me, I agree with my dad. Of the 5 end of the road shows I've seen, I think it was the best one because of everything my dad said. They talked a lot more. Well, I mean, they as in Mr. Stanley, he talked a lot more. The sentiment was there. You can feel it. The crowd was on fire, right? They also dialed up a lot of the production of some of the songs. So I will say I was impressed that even though I've seen this show with the exception of whatever the 12th song they would slot in was, which I've seen 3 different now, a lot more fire during War Machine, right? A lot more lasers. There was more of these guitar parts they played.
The screens, the pods.
The screens, the pod, just the energy from the band. I thought Tommy was really exceptionally strong on guitar. Eric's always great. But man, Gene and Paul, and there was a moment that I didn't see happen at something that occurred later that I think will be a different show. But man, was it after Beth? Gene and Paul kind of did their own kind of shoulder stand with each other and kind of let the crowd kind of go crazy for them a bit more. Like, wow, we did that. We talked about that on Kiss Army things too, but man, I felt like they were particularly on fire, and they went from a crowd interaction, from a, like my dad said, from a sentiment standpoint, it's the most I heard Paul give through 5 shows. And it was just really, I felt it. And I agree with my dad. That felt like the end of the road to me. That was the best way I could have went out as a Kiss fan with you all, and with the way that show was and the way the band was. I thought it was exceptional. And for me being a Rock and Roll Over fan, for that being my favorite album, to have the album cover like on the screens during Making Love, and to have that be the song where we all were really singing with each other the most, that was a clear highlight for me. If anyone listening has a really high def kind of closer photo of the stage with the Rock and Roll with the rock and roll over stuff during that song, can you send it, please? I want to make a new screensaver for my laptop, and the one I took isn't good enough because I'm not a photographer.
May have to look at Kiss Army Things Facebook, because those two guys were up above
Oh,
us
they
in
got
the 200 and they went down to the floor. So Xander got some killer footage, dead center stage
on their Facebook. Okay, cool.
on the
cool,
Facebook. So I thought this section might go a little bit longer. I know we're kind of pressed for time, and I feel like there's a whole nother podcast
There is
from New York City, and
soon. We've got to schedule that tonight, because I would to get that one fired up like maybe next week.
Yeah.
So
it's too much, Rob, to do now, because I want to keep this on a high.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then we can analyze the future and what the pay-per-view was to all of us. We can do that on another show.
Yeah. Let's just end here. So I think the show is just going to be Rosemont closed. For the two of you gentlemen, as we were driving home, I know I've said this to you guys before, and I told my wife, I said, if Nick and Nikko at the end of this show were like, you know what, we're both kind of busy, this was a good send off, if you guys were stepping out of the show, I said I'd be okay with it. You know, I'd be sad that the show was ending, but I can't think of a better way to cap it. But I was like, I think that our road is going to continue. And I was just, the one thing I wanted, I could have said, oh, I wish they would have done Hide Your Heart. I wish they would have done that. I wanted more time. I wanted more time with everyone. As exciting as it was to before the show, once we were all talking about everything at the very end, I wanted more of that moment. And knowing that we got a little bit more in the hotel at the Holiday Inn, Living in Sin on Xander's channel, that just with us sitting on that couch together, that those moments were the thing that I took away from that experience. Going, any show that I've seen, like the bar is so high just because of the whole entire package. The band was great. The experience was great, but getting to shake hands, hug both you gentlemen, and then our extended Kiss podcast family, I can't think of a better send off. So when somebody says, what's the best concert you've ever seen, it's going to be Rosemont. The bar is very high for me.
I completely agree with everything that you said. I wanted more time too. Nick and I driving home, we said, you know, we went there, we sat there, we spent a great deal of time doing that show with Xander. That was fantastic. And then it was sad, Rob. We dropped you back off at the hotel. Mm-hmm. It was over quickly. I know we'll talk about it on a future show, but I know there's going to be something that's going to bring us all back together again. Yeah. And I hope it's through more time. I hope it's over. I hope it's a couple of days or a day and a half, somewhere we can have a little bit more interaction. It's just not centered around one single show, and everybody's got to kind of come in and get out. So, and then again, that was the best part of it. The other part of it is, again, I've been a fan of Kiss, not quite 50 years, obviously, but since 75 or whatever. And I can honestly say, from a physical standpoint, myself, from what I saw live, you know, nothing's ever going to top the reunion as far as performances are concerned.
Yeah.
But the overall experience of that night, and I felt, because we're going to say, I got a lot to talk about in the future about how it really ended and things that happened. But that night, this band, Paul Stanley, gave me closure as a Chicago Kiss fan in the Midwest, as a kid that saw them on the Midnight Special and became enamored and in love with them ever since. So it was just like just one of those things for me, you know, like that night was truly special. And that's what I'm going to remember. Whatever. And as far as the podcast is concerned, I am freaking fired up because there is so much to talk about of what's going to come, fantasizing about some other stuff. And we still didn't even talk about the majority of the albums, live performances, DVDs, opening bands. So I am as excited as ever, even though the band is done touring with the makeup. So
Mr. Myers, when it comes to the podcast, we're just getting started, my friend. We're just, and you know
I
what?
set that up.
You know what though? I forget if I think I said this in the last episode of Road to Rosemont, but man, it's almost like it's kind of now that they're done touring, I think a lot more doors open for the podcast. It's almost like, okay, great, we have this great experience, but listen, now they're kind of done with the touring, so let's kind of blow open the future, right? And that's not a bad thing. But Rob, Dad, like you both said, truly one of the best concert experiences of my life, but also as a Kiss fan who's been a fan for about probably 18 or 19 years, if I'm really counting back to my first Kiss, right? I got the closure and the about as perfect of a send-off as I could get, not only with you all, but from the band as well. I feel like they gave me, I wanted the best from them that night. I got the best from them that night, I truly believe. And man, no, as for the podcast, we're just getting started.
And the $40 pay-per-view we'll talk about.
Starting with the next episode of the show, where we have a lot.
There's a lot.
To talk about.
I knew we weren't going to squeeze it everything in, but as any good podcast or any good show was, but wait, there's more. So this is where we're putting a pin in it. There's so much more to talk about. But until then, this has been Nick, Nikko, and Rob, 3 generations of Kiss fans that saw their last Kiss show together. More on the end of the road of Kiss in the next episode. Stay tuned, because you ain't going to want to miss this one. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care.
God bless.
Peace.